Talagang nahihirapan po kasi lahat po mamahalan, pati nga po yung bigas.
Ngayon lang ako nakaranas ng ganito.
I've seen worse inflations.
Normal pa po yan. It's higher than usual, but it's nothing to be worried about.
Prices of goods reached their highest level in 9 years last month, way beyond the government's target. Consumers are feeling the pinch with their meager budgets. In a bid to control the rising prices of basic commodities, an executive order to be issued this month will ease food importation, which the government claims will bring retail prices down. There are also other efforts to bring down inflation that's hitting everyone. I'm Pia Hontiveros. This is On the Record. We have here in the studio Marikina Representative Miro Kimbo and Associated Labor Unions Trade Union Congress of the Philippines Vice President Luis Corral. In the meantime, joining us by phone, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Ernesto Pernia. He is, like we said, joining us by phone, and we're going to speak to him in just a bit. But first, I want to say good evening first to Congressman Kimbo and to Mr. Corral. Thank you very much for being here. Well, let's begin with this. In the background, or literally hovering over us, is Ompong. It's barreling towards land mass here in the Philippines. Yeah. Areas including vast farmlands that would have given the country more rice, more food, more corn. No? So this is so unfortunate for us. It's coming at a really bad time, right?
Yeah, I think that timing could not have been worse, considering the high prices of basic commodities, particularly rice and corn. But it's not entirely unexpected, meaning these are things that we planned for, considering that September, October, as well as December are key months where big typhoons have come over the last 6 years. It's so eerie. I mean, I come from Marikina, and Ondoy, like Ompong, is letter O. It came September 26, right. And it's practically the same circumstances. So, but it's not unexpected. But I guess it will only get to highlight the difficult situation that we're really in, which is
because of the inflation, all these price. I mean, it's so tragic because like Ilocos farmers were telling our David Santos yesterday and today that they cannot yet harvest the rice, even if they were told na i-harvest yun na, di ba? So paano? What?
You cannot. The thing with rice and corn is you cannot harvest it unless it's ripe, meaning it's ripe for harvesting. They're like 15% away from harvesting time, so it's really useless to get it because it's you'll just waste the labor that you do. So I think, but what it does underscore is that what will happen in the next month is that inflation will further be pushed from the current high rates that it is today. Is going to be higher as we have expected.
And if Ompong is, as weather forecasters are saying, going to be very, very devastating, then we can foresee that so much of these crops will be destroyed. So what are we looking at here?
Well, you have government capable of making man-made interventions. And some of those interventions have been put in play. One is the rice tariffication bill. The other one is the proposal for a trabajo, a renamed Train 2 bill. Now, some of those initiatives should be subjected to a good going over. It might be best for our economic managers to step back from the brink, considering that some of these initiatives might be bad timing. On the rice tariffication measure, that's been passed. It's now in the Senate. Farmers are looking at it from two ways. It might be good for consumers, but a real danger to the survival of 3 million rice farmers. So there has to be some kind of nuanced, sophisticated response. And that nuanced, sophisticated response should apply as well to the so-called trabajo bill. Awful timing for you to push a bill where we expect that in the first portion, following what the economists call the J-curve, there will be job losses. And that's not a good thing for our economy.
Well, it's interesting you use the term to step back from the brink. No,
Yes.
When you say brink, it's like we're about to fall off the cliff, and that's for those people have like fear of heights or something. That's terrifying.
It
right?
seems that our economic managers have accepted the problem that the rice situation has brought about. But they're still in denial about petroleum, excise taxes on petroleum. And they should have a more comprehensive set of measures rather than just saying that we want to have an executive order that will flood the market with cheap rice. And they're going to do that to DTI. You have to consider policies that will not be beggar thy neighbor policies, where rice farmers take a hit. You know, for far too long, it was workers who were taking a hit. Now, they're going to sacrifice rice farmers in the name of trying to get out of this mess. So they have to have something more nuanced, sophisticated, and there has to be inclusiveness. There has to be greater participation. There was no consultation on this executive order with the basic sectors.
Okay. Well, before we go to NEDA Director General Ernie Pernia, first to Miro Kimbo, dahil nabanggit na nga yung this bill of yours, no, Miro, removing these
Yes.
excise taxes on kerosene and fuel. I suppose people will welcome that. Ang taas na
Yeah, I think we have to take a close look at how inflation is really impacting our people, and it's really most severe on the poor. We see it, and all the review of literature, all the studies that we have seen will show that for each time you have a 20% increase in food costs, more than 2 million people become poor, meaning enter the poverty line. Those that are in the near poor.
2 or 5 million new poor. What is it?
Well, it's every 10% you get 2.3 million entering
okay, that's why.
But we've had a 22% increase in food prices, so effectively that's over 4.5 million who have always been hovering slightly above the poverty line, but with food increases, the drop towards the poverty line is instantaneous.
Right.
When not only are they unable to buy these commodities, but even in terms of nutrition, the studies have shown that for every 20% increase, you also consume 20% less. So that means kids are getting sick,
Right.
they're not getting enough nutrition.
Yeah.
What's the use of
because
all
you
our...
don't, because you don't have enough money to buy what you need to buy.
Yeah,
or you have the same amount of money, but you buy less because yun yung presyo. Parang ganun, no?
And the data of NEDA shows that, meaning the highest inflation is really in cigarettes. Why? Because in reality, people have been spending more for cigarettes rather than rice or food, because the addiction to cigarettes is just insatiable, meaning you need to consume one pack of cigarettes, you consume it. But as far as rice is concerned or bread, that's the food basket that really goes down.
There's this data from PSA and the Finance Department. Poorest 60 million Filipinos belonging to the 6 lowest deciles, losing 1,200 plus to 2,800 plus. Para sa mga komportable, maliit na bagay yun, no?
Yeah.
Pero kapag mahirap ka, sobrang laking bagay, no? Talagang magagalit ka, di ba?
Pag tumataas ang kilo ng bigas mula sa 38 pesos, ay biglang ang available na rice na lang ay 58, 60 pesos, talagang you'll really take a hit. And people feel it. And I think the bigger problem is that it causes political instability. And something which we keep telling government is that you need to work on this, because really the source of instability is not the Liberal Party. It is our economic policies.
All right. Well, speaking of the government, we're going to be speaking to Social Economic Planning Secretary Ernie Pernia after the break. This is On the Record. Welcome back to On the Record. Our guests, Marikina Representative Miro Kimbo and Associated Labor Unions Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, Vice President Luis Corral, Social Economic Planning Secretary Ernesto Pernia joins us now on the phone. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us, sir, give us a little bit more details about this executive order. It's beginning to sound like the government believes that this is going to solve many, if not all, our problems at the moment.
Well, cost, or the main cause of inflation is really scarcity or shortage of goods, food in this case, and to address that, we just need to ease on the bottlenecks, logistical bottlenecks, distribution, and storage of these goods in proper places so that they are available where they are needed.
What are you saying, sir? That there are people who are hoarding food?
No, no.
I mean, because you said the distribution, logistics, bottlenecks.
In the case of rice, it's plain mismanagement of NFA, I would think. Mismanagement NFA. Because there are really stacks of rice in their warehouses, but they have not been distributed. I don't know for what reason. And that is why the immediate need is to distribute this something like 4.6 million bags of rice in the warehouses of NFA. And then also to, and there are upcoming imports that would be available once the 4.6 million bags of rice consumed.
So is that why, sir, we have all this talk about, let's abolish the NFA, let's replace
Yes,
Jason
because the
Aquino? So ganun lang, sir, ang problema natin, ganun kasimple dahil sa NFA?
Well, also agriculture has not been performing well. And we have not really improved our productivity in agriculture, in terms of mechanization, irrigation, and distribution from farm to market.
And what is the problem there, sir? Whose fault is that?
Well, again, these are faults of those who are supposed to deliver the services.
Okay. So, sir, apart from this EO, yun na po yung magiging solution natin. Are you saying that once this is in place, bababa ng inflation, prices of basic goods will go down, everything will get cheaper, less people will be hungry, less people will be poor? Ganun po ba yun?
We are focusing on food items because these are the ones we can have a handle on in terms of reforms and measures to deal with logistical bottlenecks and shortage. And this shortage is most likely really more in terms of distribution rather than availability. And the clearing at customs and then moving them on to the warehouses and then to the markets. These are things that can be done quite readily.
Secretary Pernia, there's been a lot of criticism of the administration because of this inflation rate. And then the way some people would defend the administration is to say na, dun sa ibang administration mas mataas pa yung inflation rate. Is that the correct argument for defense?
It's not, but then one should also look at put things in perspective. That's not really an excuse. That is just really informing people that our economy has been growing fast, and usually when the economy is growing fast, inflation follows because supply doesn't adjust readily to surging demand. And maybe it's poor planning and maybe poor timing of agricultural products and other goods and services that are needed.
Yeah, well, speaking of poor timing, sir, kanina pinag-uusapan nga, and well, everybody's very aware of it. We have a typhoon, possibly a super typhoon, hurtling towards the country, hitting northern Luzon, which could provide so much of that rice and corn that's so badly needed. But it's not like we don't know that September, October, November, December, tinatamaan naman tayo ng bagyo. So this couldn't have come at the worst time, no? In terms of impact, what will this mean to us?
I agree, and that's why we should, the NFA should have been doing its role or job of buffer stocking, importing at the right time, and stocking and making sure that we have enough in stock during emergencies like this. 30 days.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have adequate stocks for 30 days. That will last for 30 days. and then in normal times 15 days.
Uh-huh.
But
Well, sir,
that
yeah.
has been done.
Oh, well, you keep repeating, it's NFA's fault, etc. But also, there has been quite a lot of criticism of, well, you and other economic managers, no? And the terms that have come up that have been used are miscalculation, self-inflicted, itong mga nangyayari. Not very good words for you guys.
Miscalculation
Of all these, of what is happening now, na hindi, para bang lumalabas, hindi na anticipate yung mangyayari after train in January, etc., moving into the latter part of the year?
Well, NEDA is not in charge of, importing rice and making or importing fish, making sure that they're available.
Okay, but there is an economic cluster, hindi po ba? I mean,
Economic cluster,
yeah,
Economic development.
economic development cluster.
yes.
So, okay, so basically what you're saying is all our troubles right now because of the NFA.
No, I didn't say
Hindi
that.
naman.
Say that. I didn't.
Okay, so what else do we attribute it to? Because, so, I mean,
In terms of rice, it's really NFA and Department of Agriculture.
okay. Okay. Well, what do we do, sir, about, again, speaking of criticism, no, ang daming bumabatiko sa train ngayon. And then there's train 2, but, it's not just 1, not 2, not 3. Sabi daw, 5 train packages. And people talking about, do we go ahead with train 2 now?
A train can be suspended, but then we also have to suspend the reduction in tax rates. And also getting rid of that exemption of those earning 250,000 and below, because they're going together. They're companions in the train law.
Okay. Well, what other solutions is the government looking at? Because what we have here right now is, as Mayor Kimbo and so many other people are saying, no, parang there are going to be so many Filipinos that are going to get even poorer. More Filipinos will have less in terms of buying power, less money. They can have the same amount of money, pwedeng 1,000 pesos, but it's going to buy less. And then when they're hungry, that becomes a problem.
Well, if this high inflation rate persists, yes, I agree that there will be more poor Filipinos. But that's why we are trying to address it with immediate to short-term solutions, not to mention also medium to long-term solutions.
Okay. Well, sir, just one last thing. No, po, are we headed for a crisis, or is this already a crisis?
What is the question?
Are we headed for a crisis, or is this already a crisis?
Crisis in terms of inflation?
Yeah.
No.
High prices, high prices goods, high prices fuel, etc.
No, we expect inflation to taper toward the latter part of the year.
So this is not a crisis, sir.
Well, it's a matter of how you look at it. But as far as we are concerned, it's not really it's not something that is going to be longer lasting.
It's not going to last forever.
It's not going to last forever.
So when do we expect things to get better? Next year?
I've said it's going to taper off. Our expectation, BSP's expectation, is for inflation to taper off during the latter part of the year, the fourth quarter, and then even climb down in 2019, closer to our target of 2 to 4%.
Okay. Secretary Pernia, final words na lang po from you.
Well, I think the measures, short-term and medium-term measures that we have proposed for the Office of the President to issue an EO, I think they're going to work if they are going to be acted on right away and implemented right away.
All right. Secretary Pernia, thank you very much for joining us this evening. So, Okay, Congressman Kimbo and Mr. Corral, your reactions first before we go to a break.
Yeah, and my takeaway there is it seems that the Economic Planning Secretary is not very sure about what's happening in terms of how to assess the situation today. It's not very reassuring, to say the least. I think what we are witnessing today is that Secretary Perna is also part of the NFA Council. And he's been there for the last 2.5 years. So,
Which has supervision by on over the NFA?
well, in terms of policies, the highest policy-making body in terms of rice as well as its rice management is the NFA Council. The
na
NFA,
gusto naman i-abolish.
the NFA and the NFA Council have been at loggerheads over the last 30 years. But past administrations have managed to ease out all those different conflicting mandates because somebody really sits on top of it. But we cannot just keep saying that the rice is just the issue here, because the problem here is that it's plaguing the entire economy. You look at fuel costs, which is a major component of food, and obviously even train. Train is affecting us tremendously in a manner that they did not expect it would.
Yeah.
In fact, all the disclosures that they told us in terms of calculation, they've missed it by at least 80 to 90%. So it's the poor who's really taking the brunt for train and for inflation.
Mr. Corral.
Secretary Perna has been looking at the supply side, and the magic bullet is unclogging the supply chain. We told some of the economic development cluster people in the cabinet that even if you accompany the rice from the pier all the way to the Bagsakan centers, and they already exist, the ones who will buy the rice will be the wholesalers. Unless you address...
In other words, the effect on prices will be...
They will still manipulate
Okay.
the market. This is a case of where they have control of the market. They could game the market. And the reality is you have to address also the demand side. The average, national average minimum wage is now 344 pesos. In real terms, it's now down in value to 287 pesos. So that's about a 16% drop. So the capacity of people even to buy the supply that you're going to flood into the market is really an iffy question. So what we're proposing, and this has been on the table with DBM for about a year already, and the dole, is let's not forget the minimum wage earners who are doing the build, because they got absolutely nothing from Train 1. Okay, you had Train 1, you had a huge break for personal income tax for a targeted number of people. All of a sudden, you had increased expenditure that brought up the inflation rate. And government miscalculated on the effect of excise taxes on sugary products and petroleum, which had a knockover domino effect. I don't know what kind of computation they have that says it's only 0.4% inflation. And that cascaded and unfortunately impacted on minimum wage earners and contractuals who got nothing from Train 1. And they're the ones paying the revenue generating measures built into Train 1 for the build. These are the guys who are doing the build. And they're the ones sacrificing. And they're now in a survival state. And that's something that we'd like to bring to the attention of Secretary Perna. He has to address comprehensively both the supply side question and the demand side question. It's not just the supply chain. Certainly, why not go after the cartels? Those are the real problem.
All right, we'll be right back. On the record, be right back. We're on the last stretch of the program. Our topic, that thing called inflation. Are we headed for a crisis, or is this a crisis already? And I just wanted to quote, there was this Bloomberg article quoting a political science professor at UP, Jean Pilapil. Inflation is the most political of all economic risks because it can be felt immediately. So is this the crisis already?
I think we, unless the government's able to fully address it comprehensively and decisively, it's a crisis that will persist, and I think we'll have pernicious effects on the political capital of the president. That's, I mean, I say it as part of the opposition. In all honesty, we want the president to succeed. Any president who's sitting there, we want him to succeed because whenever the president succeeds, the entire country succeeds. Right. But the way they're running it today, I think to the detriment of the greater majority of our people, they're not running it well. You see our economic managers shifting from one topic to the other. Nobody seems to be sitting on top of this pyramid called inflation. And up until 2 days ago, they have refused to admit that they've made a mistake in terms of calculation. Only then, only 48 hours ago, they admitted it. And like I said, unless you admit there's a problem, you can never solve it.
Right. Political capital of the president. Again, speaking of timing, there's the elections in the middle of next year. Mr. Corral?
Look, the top of head issues for all Filipinos right now are prices, which are spiraling upwards, lack of income, and the real problem of the quality of work that they have. In the matter of prices, we would like to propose a subsidy program, dirty word for the NEDA, but inescapable because the minimum wage earners, 4 million of them, took absolutely nothing from Train 1. Let's give them a 500 peso per month subsidy. We're calling it the Labor Empowerment Adjustment Program to help tie them
Hindi pa ito
through.
yung conditional cash transfer. Okay.
We have an across-the-board wage petition. I know that employers are saying it's inflationary. Let's look now at the lost real value of wages and just restore that first through the COLA so that the cost of living computation won't factor into the 13th month. So that's less inflationary. There are means of addressing this supply problem. And certainly, it's not just accompanying the rise all the way to a Bagsakan Center. And it requires more political and economic imagination on the part of Secretary Pernia, Secretary Jokno, and Secretary Dominguez.
I guess what everybody wants is that no one goes hungry, right? But thank you very much to our guests tonight, Marikina Representative Miro Kimbo and Associated Labor Unions, TUCP VP Luis Corral, and earlier to NEDA SecGen Ernie Pernia. That is on the record this week. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Thank you for watching.
Talagang nahihirapan po kasi lahat po mamahalan, pati nga po yung bigas.
Ngayon lang ako nakaranas ng ganito.
I've seen worse inflations.
Normal pa po yan. It's higher than usual, but it's nothing to be worried about.